Hello, and welcome to TCN's Cloudcast, where we explore the latest trends and innovations in the contact center industry. Today, we're thrilled to have Bryce Payne, Vice President of Business Development at TCN, here to help us understand some of the often overlooked nuances of text messaging. Welcome to Cloudcast, Bryce.
Thank you, Spencer. Really happy to be here.
Well, let's get right into it. There has been a lot of talk recently about text messaging, but is it just me, or is text messaging for call centers a lot more complicated than it sounds? It doesn't seem to be as cut and dry as it might appear.
It definitely is more complicated. It's gotten a lot more complicated over the while, most particular when it comes to the approval process through the carriers. They're getting more and more strict, and so it's harder and harder to get things through, and they're looking at every aspect of it.
All right. Well, let's start off with the basics then. Since we want to dissect the complicated parts of this. So for our listeners, short message service, or SMS, it's been around for over 30 years. Is it time to retire it, or is it still useful in today's contact center?
It's absolutely still useful because it's just that quick, easy, inexpensive approach to be able to get a message out. It's short message, notifications, send a link, inexpensive way to get a mass amount of information out.
Right, but it does have limits, right?
Yeah, definitely. You're going to be limited to 160 characters, and sometimes with all the different compliance regulations, what maybe your legal counsel tells you, I've found that sometimes people have been pushed into 2 segments or even as much as 3 segments trying to get in everything they fit, and so then you're looking at double or even triple the cost.
Wow, that's interesting. That is great to know. But if SMS is used for those basic simple tasks, what about multimedia messaging services, or MMS? The logical step would be that this is for more complex tasks, but is that because it introduces media?
Well, the concept with MMS is it's more expensive than SMS, but it gives you some flexibility. It gives you the ability to send images in that, which that can be as simple as your logo, which gives some credibility to the message, but it doesn't have the character limitations, so then you don't have to worry about trying to fit something into 160 characters. So you can do your logo, have a longer message, and even add attachments, such as maybe possibly a model validation notice.
Gotcha. And you don't have to have an image in there. You could just send a longer text with MMS.
Correct.
Okay.
You could do that, but typically, since you have that capability with it, it doesn't add any additional cost. It's something that I'd suggest go ahead and do.
Okay, well, great. And so it can help communication with more complex information because it doesn't have to simply be plain text. So that's really handy. Now let's talk about the big one, right? RCS. We've been hearing a lot about rich communication services lately. Why now? Why recently?
Well, it's been available globally, but not really as much here in the United States. It's a Google product, and so it was really only available to your Android type phones. Google's making it more available across the board, but also they didn't have a set compliance procedure for getting things approved, and they were really focusing on just your Fortune 500 companies initially. So it's been a while. It's not been something that's been readily available to companies such as collection agencies yet, but it is now something that you can get your application in, start applying for what they call the design your agent, and I think it's time because it's going to give a lot more flexibility of what you can do.
Okay.
And actually, it's not delivered over a phone number like 10DLC, toll-free, or short code that you're typically used to. It's part of the Google Messenger service over the cloud. So instead of showing up as a number on your phone, it'll just show up as your company name or logo in your text message string.
Oh, really? Okay. So what makes that different from just sending a fancy MMS per se?
Well, you're actually able to build what I would call an app-like experience. And so instead of having someone to download an app, you can actually when they open up the text message, it actually is like they've entered an app, and you can have carousels and drop-down boxes and basically lots of different functions all built in there. They can go ahead and make payments and set up payment plans, and you can disseminate a lot of information just as if they had entered in your company app.
Oh, wow. That seems like a lot more of a fully interactive experience. And it also seems like it's not necessarily going to replace SMS or MMS, but it'll just be part of, an overall strategy. So with so much going on with a single message, in the RCS, and so many options for customization, is it harder to manage from a compliance standpoint?
Yeah, one of the most significant challenges continues to be the ever-changing goalposts for what the carriers require for compliance and campaign approval. What was allowable only a couple of months ago has changed. You will need to have a vendor that will work with you getting these things compliant and then keeping up on the changes as they happen. The MNOs are getting more and more strict on what they require, and your website and the application itself and everything needs to match perfectly.
I see. Well, for someone who has not started a texting campaign but is considering it, what advice would you give them?
So getting approved has always been the challenge, but it's in particular to the third party. They've gotten more and more strict when it comes to an agency collecting on behalf of a client. For whatever reason, they've made that more and more difficult to the point where the only real way to get that through typically is through a short code, because the short code, the way that gets approved, you have a little bit more of an open communication process with the carrier and those doing the approval. And so the short codes, you're able to get those approved easier, but they are significantly more expensive on a monthly basis. But it gives you a path to being able to get approved.
Interesting. That's really good to know. So, what about for those that have started but might consider themselves just beyond a beginner?
Really, probably the key thing I see is putting together an overall communication strategy and journey with your customer. I see people are thinking about, get that message out, hey, we need to make collections, but think about different ways to communicate with that customer, from an initial touch point to maybe a text message that says, hey, we're about to call you today, be aware of a phone call coming in. Or, hey, we just tried to call you, weren't able to reach you, but here's a link to go to our payment portal. It's different ways to drive the communication and keep that going. Most people are kind of thinking just single-minded of, I got to get a message out and hopefully they'll call.
Yeah, excellent. Well, that's great advice. Thank you for that. And where can people go to get more information about TCN's texting offerings?
Well, they can go over to tcn.com, of course, and there's quite a bit of information we have there about the services that we provide, in particular to texting. We have a full guide called Ultimate Guide to SMS Communication that breaks down their ROI on each of these and giving them a lot of different ideas and thoughts. And even maybe we have a whole library of sample scripts that we find that we've been able to get approved that gives you an idea of some ways to work through that journey with your client.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That is all great information, and we'll make sure to link that page in the description below. So last question. You mentioned the MNOs briefly before, and I just wanted to clarify for some of the listeners that may not know what MNOs are.
No, great question. MNO stands for Mobile Network Operator, so it's just a fancy acronym for the carriers, Verizon, AT&T, those.
That's great. Thank you so much for that clarification. And again, I really appreciate your time and coming here and talking with me today. And I hope you can come and join us and dive a little bit more into the specifics of text messaging and further detail in the future. And really, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it because it's constantly changing and it's very difficult to stay on top of all the rules and regulations, and they're changing every day. Just when you think you've got it figured out, then all of a sudden it changes and then you're starting all over again. So it's a great topic to continue on.
That's great. Well, we'll talk to you next time, Bryce. See you later.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to TCN's Cloudcast. We hope you gained valuable insights and perspectives on the ever-evolving world of contact center software. For more information on the topics discussed in this episode, please visit tcn.com or click the link below. Don't forget to subscribe for future episodes as we continue to explore cutting-edge trends and innovations.